Welcome you again to our NewFinance open mic night. Very straightforward agenda tonight. We've got Peter, Michael and Lawrence who are going to speak. Without further ado, we now have Peter van Kleef from Lakeview CMS.
Yeah, so Lakeview basically stands for Lakeview Capital Market Services. There are actually two Lakeviews. There's a German part, that's the capital markets part, which is a broker and asset manager, and there's a Swiss part that basically does software. Just to give you a quick background on myself, I've been in banking trading for about 20 years, set up and run trading operations for some major banks globally, worked in the US, worked in Switzerland, worked in the UK, lived in London for like 7 years. And the latest product or the latest idea that we already had a couple of years ago, but which we've been working on for now over 3 years, which we invested in over £2 million. So that's something clearly we have to feel passionate about if we put up that kind of money, is what I want to talk to you about today. And that's what we call Quantstore. So what is Quantstore? It's an advanced cloud-based financial services exchange information distribution platform. So that means a lot of things, but maybe if you read that headline, you think, well, what is that guy on? What did he have for drinks before he went on here? So I want to give you some more detail on that. Just before I go into detail and show you what it is and sort of like how we got that idea in the first place, I just want to explain a little bit more how we go about sort of like products ideas. I think in general it's always a good idea if you want to do something, if you want to launch a product, if you want to launch a service, just to think about you got to fill some need. So either it's some need that people don't know that they have, nobody knew that they needed an iPad before it came out, and now everybody needs one, or you solve a problem. So people have to make payments and it's just expensive for them. So ideally what you want to have is you fill a need and you solve a problem, and that's what we're trying to do here. So being 20 years in banking, working for a lot of large organizations, you quickly see there's some substantial market challenges. And if you look at it, then you see, and my background is really so like from the electronic trading side, electronic transaction side, technology banking side. So people now talk about fintech. I mean, some companies I used to work for, they were trading fully electronically like 20 years ago. Fintech is a new acronym and like big data, and we were doing it like 20 years ago. But I'm curious what will be the next big thing. So seeing that in the market, that the analytics, trading, risk management software, infrastructure, that's really expensive. I mean, if you go out and say, okay, I really want to have market connectivity everywhere, I want to have data feeds, I want to do transactions globally with people, it's not something where you can just go to the next computer store and say, okay, I want to have Microsoft Excel, I want to have Microsoft Word, or something you can use online, but really requires a lot of expertise and a lot of investment to do that. If you just think about some of the banks out there, they run up to 5,000 applications. If you think about that, it's like crazy. So you go to one of the big banks like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, and all those other guys, and you ask them, okay, you got this application, and invariably they will say, yeah, we got it in that office. And you say, well, you got this one as well? Yeah, we got that in that office. So they have a huge array of software, and each of the packages is quite expensive, and they all need to work together. So that's a fundamental problem you have in the market. Second one is there's no real competent central place for information services and exchange and distribution. So if you want to find out actually what those 5,000 applications are, I'm not sure. Like anybody of you knows? I mean, you can list like, let's say, at least 1,000 of them? Probably not, right? I mean, if you say, well, okay, I need an application for risk management, I need something for trading, I need something for payments, I need something for reporting. I think there's very few people in the market that can actually give you a complete list and say that's out there. Because everybody has their own website. There's no central place, nothing like Amazon. You say, okay, I want brown shoes. You go on Amazon or on eBay and you say, okay, I want brown shoes, or I want to have a radio, and you pretty much get a fairly comprehensive list of what's out there. So it's nothing like that. So you have to know people. You have to know the market. You have to know the vendors. You have to know. So like you have to have worked in some of those organizations to know what's already there. Then once even you pick something, and finally through references and checking and doing a lot of research and work and talking to your peers, maybe you find something that you actually want to use. Then the problem that you have all those applications and they don't work with each other. A lot of people and a lot of applications are built like big monolithic applications. So they were designed from the ground of having richer and richer functionality. Some of them started like 10, 15 years ago, and they always build more and more functionality. So they're like as core applications built. So supposedly you can run the bank on. I mean, today, nobody installs a big application. Everybody has like an app on their phone, on the iPad. You know, if you need weather, okay, you have an app for that. You need email, you have an app for that. You want to, you know, so like check holidays, you have an app for that. I mean, you don't have the all singing, all dancing application. So that's really an outdated model. Makes it also incredibly difficult to get exactly what you want, because on an iPhone, on an iPad, you can just delete the stuff that you don't want, and you know, for the stuff that you need, you install apps, and only for what you need. But it's not this all singing, all dancing, so like iPhone application or telephone application that does everything. So there's a new model necessary, and because if you have those applications, you want to integrate them, they cost you a lot of money. So some banks, they spend up to $1 billion a year. I mean, just think about it, like $1 billion a year just to keep this stuff running. I mean, that's not even license fee. That's like integrating the stuff, making sure that, you know, the lights are green and, you know, the stuff is running. So that's crazy. And then finally, you would think, well, okay, if they have 5,000 applications, they pretty much have everything in the market. So why don't they share sort of like the cost of running that, integrating that with other guys? You know, if I have to do something and the guy next to me does exactly the same thing, and the guy, so like, you know, three blocks down the road does the same thing as well, I mean, it would kind of make sense to say, well, okay, maybe, you know, I do 1/3, you do 1/3, and you do 1/3, and we kind of share that somewhat. But, you know, banks are secretive. Banks are sort of like, okay, this is all cool stuff, and, you know, I'm much better than the other guys. If you look at it closely, it's pretty much the same thing in a different shade of color. I mean, it's probably not even color. It's different shades of gray. So there's no real economies of scale. So, but if you don't think, again, about the cost, and you say, well, okay, one place spends $1 billion, you know, and that's the same infrastructure that 10 other places run, and they would share the cost. So all of them, let's say, maybe you have a markup 10, 20%, would be 1.2 billion, and you divide it by 10. I mean, that's a lot of money you can save. So the whole marketplace of this, the offering that we're targeting is supposedly around 400 billion a year. And that's a big market. So if I only get 1% market share, I mean, not even 1%, 0.1% market share, should be quite interesting market to address. And, you know, if you only have the biggest players in the market being able to afford so like that infrastructure, that technology, also what it creates is sort of like an unlevel playing field. So for, you know, a lot of people that are here that maybe have ideas how to get started in fintech, you know, they have great ideas, want to get started, it's very difficult to actually get a foot through the door and launch the product, show it to an audience, and create professional infrastructure that actually people then are happy to use. So that's some stuff that we want to change. The way we want to change it is by having sort of like an app store type thing in the middle, where you have institutions, and institutions could be banks, could be hedge funds, could be proprietary trading firms, could be wealth managers, and they can use pretty much software and infrastructure on that platform for themselves, so they can just achieve economies of scale by saying, okay, somebody else did a network connection to JP Morgan. We also need a network connection to JP Morgan to set it up for 2 people. Doesn't cost materially more than for 1 person. Or to, you know, send trades, send currency payments, send bookings from one system to the other. To do that for 10 parties is materially the same cost as doing it for 1 party. So you could use it yourself. However, what you could also do is say, well, okay, this works for me. Maybe I give access to that infrastructure, to those services I'm using myself, to other people in the market as well. And then, again, you share the cost amongst many more people, and you bring down your own cost. Clearly, institution will not do everything themselves. I mean, right now, a lot of banks, you know, cut staff and you know, cut consultants, but still use external service providers. And for some stuff, you know, that's a preferred way of doing things because you just need people for a certain period of time. So no point, you know, hiring someone on a fixed term or on a fixed contract if you only need them for 3 or 6 months. So you might want to use service providers. And on a service provider, the problem that you have right now is that if you want to provide that service to a bank, a lot of banks have restrictions in terms of whom they're going to deal with. So if you go as a single individual person, say, you know, I'm a great programmer, I'm a great analyst, I can do research for you, I can do models for you, strategies, whatever, they maybe are not even able to deal with you because they say, okay, I need a reliable counterparty that, if push comes to shove, I can sue and I can get some money back if they do something, that didn't work out. And, I just can't deal with like 50 individuals. So I need a bigger organization to deal with. So here you have the chance as well to not only use professional infrastructure, but also to pretty much get started immediately and provide professional service to those institutions. Finally, as an individual, you can also use the infrastructure that's here, and you can also use the services either from service providers and institutions, and you can get access to professional tools. So the absolute extreme example would be, let's say, a student that developed something in his computer science lab or business course, and he thinks, okay, it's a charting program or some investment strategy or some analytics model. And he thinks, okay, this might be great. This looks great, and what I've done on Excel or what I've done in my computer lab, I just want to show it to a professional audience. He could rent a couple hours on this platform, get access to professional infrastructure, implement it, then show it either to institutions or service providers or both of them. They could try it out independently of him. If let's say as a student you can only afford like a month's market data or something because data, real data, good data is expensive, you could show that to institutions and providers on the platform and say, well, okay, you verified it independently. If it works for you, give me some money. And then people through the platform can rent it, can deploy it, and you could go from student to 100 million, 500 million wealth manager, so like in a very short period of time, because here, in principle, it's like walking into a big bank, into a big fund, into a big wealth manager saying, okay, I need a seat, I need it for a couple hours, give me all the infrastructure, give me all the stuff that you have, and let me prove myself and what I can offer, and then off you go. What we provide as services as a backend, and that's maybe interesting for some of you guys that also want to build stuff, is a real development environment. So you get market data, you transactions, all this stuff is sorted. So if you want to build anything that needs market data and transactions, you can build on that, and it's built on a plugin architecture, so similar to apps. So you can very easily extend it, build own screens, build own functionality. Then you have the whole suite of testing, simulation, certification services for whatever you have. So you can have an independent party verify and certify, so like what you've been doing. We also got a link, and this is all hosted in the cloud, I have to say. We host it mainly in Amazon Cloud because it has the richest feature set, but we're also going to use that or host it in local clouds because some people are paranoid, say, well, I don't want my data to leave the country, so there will be two options. And you have an access point, sort of like from inside the cloud to outside the cloud, for example, to banks, brokers, for lower latency transactions, for things where speed is of the essence, for example, securities transactions. As it's all in one central place, you have a collaboration service exchange platform. You can not only, as you have banks as institutions connected and other financial institutions that have licenses, financial market licenses, you can rent those licenses and use those licenses, for example, to start a trading investment business. It's similar to this peer investing stuff, where you make your portfolio, your strategy available to other investors, and then they can follow that investment strategy. And that, so like regulatory umbrella is provided either by institutions or banks and brokers. And the model that we want to push on this is really like a pay-per-usage model. So you don't have to sign a 2-year contract for $500,000 a year to get professional infrastructure, to get professional access, but really that you only pay for what you use, for how long you use it, and depending on what the intensity of your usage is. So it's really fair and open and flexible, and you can scale up and down pretty much immediately. The big realization behind this, as well as like pretty much anybody out there providing services, they're all moving into a software as a service model. But think about it. If you, let's say, have 20 software as a service providers hosted in like 10 different clouds, and you want to integrate them, in my view, that makes it even worse than if you have 20 applications locally installed. If I have them locally installed, and we're talking here about banking, finance, you have deterministic latency. I mean, you have requirements saying, okay, I have to make sure, okay, that transaction goes from A to B, and I don't have like network outages or I have protocol outages, so like 3 times a day. But there's a million transactions, and they need to move every day from point A to point B. That's got to happen reliable. There's a lot of data going back and forth. If you look at market data, that's what people talk about: big data, transaction data, position data, client data. You can't just push it from one cloud to the other, from one software as a service provider to the other. Bandwidth will kill you. So that's in our view, really the only way to solve this properly is say, okay, everybody that has something to sell, something to offer, something to provide to people, that's got to be done in a central place. So what does it do? It really saves 70 to 80%. So that's something we've seen in savings that are realistic for people that come on a platform. In terms of their current operational models, it solves the headache of integration, because that's what the platform takes care of. And it just shares the cost amongst participants, so that the individual cost is then negligible rather than absolutely huge. In that sense, it's game-changing because it really provides scalability, flexibility, and it really levels the playing field. And I think that's what's needed out there as a financial services marketplace. And the way we call it is really a factory and a marketplace. And we really think this is kind of the industrialization of finance technology that we're pushing here. So just to sum things up, because I only got a couple seconds left, what we think it is a platform. It's not a product. It's a community, not a company. It's welcoming to everybody. So it's not like a closed, club. It's flexible, not fixed. It's professional, not priceless. It's scalable, not static. It's global and local, and pretty much for anybody who wants to do something in fintech. So that was really the short of it, and I'm around for the rest of the evening if you have any more questions. Or, well, we can take questions now?
Yeah, sure. Do we have any questions for Peter?
I have a quick one and a probably more in-depth one. Have you built anything and you have clients using this, or is this
basically,
slideware?
yeah, the whole backend is finished 100%. The framework for the cloud is about 50% finished. And that's the important part that Eddie actually reminded me of that I should mention. We're looking to raise some money to finish it within the next 6 months.
Do you have any clients on it?
We have individual clients on it that we onboarded manually, but we want to make it a streamlined process, so you can just go on a website and just click a couple of boxes and get your infrastructure configured. That part still needs to be finished, and that's what we're looking to find partners for.
Okay. So my bigger question is, it's obviously a massive opportunity. It's obviously a very simple solution. What has stopped people in the past doing this?
I think people took a very long time to realize that there's a shift in terms of how applications are supposed to work, from this monolithic approach to the app approach, and also realizing that there's huge economies of scale, and that not everything that you do is really that proprietary, and in the end, if you're willing to concede to yourself that a lot of the stuff that you do is just a necessity and doesn't really give you the edge in the market to be able to send a trade, to make a booking, doesn't give you an edge in the market. So if you can share cost and you can bring down cost.
I suppose, I guess my question is more about, the banking community employs some of the smartest technologists in the world. Yeah, but they didn't come up with this. Do you think it's as simple as them not having the idea, or do you think it might be a bit something else, other reason why they haven't done this?
I think it's very hard when you're sort of like in the rat race, so to speak, like to step back and think outside the box. It's much easier once you're outside of the bank, which is what I did, set up my own companies and then, have an outsider view. I think once you always drill to say, we have to improve what we do, we have to improve our application, our setup, that's just the mind frame you're in. You're not thinking,
so
what can I do for the other guys in the market?
Sure.
That's just not
so
something.
Who will you be targeting to get onto this program, onto this platform?
Pretty much anybody that uses financial services technology, that has interest in sourcing services and technology. So hedge funds, wealth managers, proprietary trading firms, second, third tier banks. I mean, the first tier banks are very unlikely to be the biggest clients in the first place because they still have this mentality, okay, what we do is always better and greater and superior to the other guys. I would contest that, but that's just how the way the world works for the moment. So a lot of people, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I think that's a very ambitious project. If you look at what's happening in the bank right now, that's the core problem of all the processes and all
exactly. Happy you say that.
I used to work in a bank, and I know that's one of the way it should work instead of the way it's working now. My question concerns the security. A lot of people, and the main reason I think the banks are not willing to change to more flexible solutions is a question of security.
Yeah, let me say two things to that. I mean, a lot of people are worried about our cloud, so I would say finding my server within the Amazon cloud is a lot harder than looking at the IP address of my bank or my firm, and then hacking into that, and you know, most likely finding a machine that's at least connected to my network under that IP address. So that is a initial hurdle. Then the access that we have, we use 256-bit RSA keys, username and password in addition to that. And then the whole thing is monitored permanently in operation for intrusion and other things. Usually in a bank, if you go in as a cleaner, you know, some people might have the post-it note, or at least you have some paperwork on the desk that pretty much gives you the username, which is usually email address or the name. And then the only thing you have to guess is the password, and you don't need an RSA key, and usually there's no intrusion detection on, so like your trading desk or your PC in the office, aside from the people maybe sitting around you. So I think the security standards, if you're realistic, within most of the financial services organizations are much lower than we enforce here. So that should be reassuring. And, you know, the question is if people are realistic about like their own security level.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
First of all, I really like the idea. I like the open sourceness, scalability. Clearly, there's, as you said, a shift and being less stagnated in the way you develop products and making them more flexible.
So we can take you down as an investor?
Well, that's a couple of questions, actually. One of them was, so you said right now you were in a stage where, like, I'm trying to figure out, is your biggest hurdle now getting clients, or is it getting funding? Or
no, the biggest hurdle I think is time to market, because when we started 3-4 years ago, I would claim that very few people have thought about this and have worked in that direction, but we see more and more people look in that direction. I mean, there's more and more so like initiatives that, you know, do similar things on a retail level, like not on a professional level for professional infrastructure, but for retail investors, you know, that you can go somewhere and piece together sort of like your financial universe with retail applications. From my view, it hasn't been done on a professional level, and we just want to make sure we're the first ones, because it's so much cooler to be the first, you know, eBay, Amazon, you know, Apple, iPad, iStore, then, you know, second or third.
Agreed. I mean, if you're not first to market and, you know, it gets squished by somebody else bigger, then that'll be a shame. In terms of your team, maybe I missed that. How many are you at the moment? And
okay, the way we work is also in line with sort of like the scalability model that we have. Yeah. So we work with actually two larger organizations that provide professional programming services. One has 700 people, one has 1,000 people. It took us a very long time to find those guys that can produce in time and budget. Okay. And there we run a team of the 10 people permanently that work on the core infrastructure, that pretty much like they are our employees more or less. But we have the sort of like nice feature that we can scale those up. So let's say our core technology is Java, again, which makes it completely flexible, like any platform, any device kind of thing. But let's say if you come with something .NET, or you come something C++ or Perl, or, you know, whatever technology that's not our core technology, I don't need to first go out and hire somebody and then pay him for, you know, at least a year or two, even though I only have a job for him for 2 weeks. But I can really get expertise on 3, 4, 5 days notice. You know, have that for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, until whatever needs to be done is finished, and then don't have the cost burden. And that's another thing we can pass on to customers, like flexible IT resources, that we say, okay, if you need something done, if you just have an idea, but through the platform, you want to procure sort of like services, you know, let's say you're an institution and you need, you know, development services, that's something we can source for you. And in a way that you're sure, okay, you don't overpay and you get, you know, delivery on time and on budget, which by itself is a huge asset. I mean, most IT managers you talk to, they only know IT projects, double the cost, you know, triple the time, and then maybe you're somewhere near a realistic estimate. So I have to stop here. I don't want to hog the whole evening, but you know, I'm around, so if you have any more questions,
offline,
take it offline. Thank you.
So Peter, thank you very much.